and she admired me. Admired me in a sense that she admired that I learned German without, that I did, that I could write, that I could. There was something that she admired, and it stayed all life long afterwards. She always said, nobody in the whole world is like Lili. She is, and she started with all the adjectives and everything. And then when my daughter was born, my little Karen, she said exactly the same about Karen. Nobody. These are, wonderful and this and no, they're the greatest, they're the intelligent, nobody's,
Mm-hmm.
To her it was that. But I don't think she ever kissed me. I don't think she ever embraced me. I don't think so. Even later, it just wasn't in her. Of course, when we saw it, we didn't see each other for a while and so, but it was never in her to be that way inclined. But she actually she loved me. She loved me all her life long. I was like the nearest thing that she had, and and she really was always full of admiration for me, which made me feel very embarrassed. In those days, I didn't realize to the extent, but later on in my life. But she, really was very, very fun. I mean, if she hadn't been, would she have kept me? No, probably. But this was so amazing. I mean, I didn't speak any German then. I did not communicate with her, my mother. Not I. I just sat there, and when she said something towards me, I would say, yeah, in case of, just in case, maybe it's bad. I don't know. But I didn't speak any.
So in the space of few days, in her eyes, you went from what is that?
What is that? To something I'm not. To schade für die Gestapo. No, the Lili I won't give you. No. So it's like quite extraordinary thing. I never in my life forget it. Because it was, she didn't know what a Jewish person meant. She only saw the slave labor there. They were there to do things for them. And that was normal. That was normal for her. Maybe, I don't know. We never discussed that. Never.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, they did not mistreat these people because they were civilians, and so they were working for them, and that was it. And that they came, they went, they did their job, goodbye. But they were slave labor. We were slaves, or they were slaves. So to her it was normal, and suddenly she realized that maybe the Jewish person like my mother, like me, are also human beings that were no different to maybe somebody else. And she not once, not twice said to my mother later on, when my mother came and was with us later, she would always say, Framstein, you're not Jewish. You can't be Jewish. My mother was your color, right? Green eyes, had no mannerisms that were obvious through Jewish man, nothing. She was a very calm person, and she never panicked loudly. It was all inside. And she was always, what should I say, she very logical, very practical, very logical. And when anything, she always say, please, I need a little bit of calm around me because I need to think. And so she admired that greatly. She admired my mother. She had great respect for my mother. Great respect in some ways. Not that she showed it in any specific way, but she did. And she liked to talk to her. And so she would say, you're not Jewish. My mother laughed. I said, what do you mean I am not Jewish? Well, you can't be. You can't possibly be Jewish. Why can't I be Jewish? Why? Have you ever seen a Jewish person in your life? No. No, she said no. So how do you know I'm not Jewish? Oh, you can't be. You don't look. You're not Jewish. My mother said, but think for a moment. Think, why would I be here? Why would you be hiding me from the Gestapo if I were not Jewish? Ah, well, I don't know, she said. I can't imagine. You know?
So there's
There is something.
some naivety there.
Exactly, that's what I said. She was a very naive, totally straightforward person. There was no this way, that way, hind thoughts. No. What she thought, she said, and she was very upright. Very upright. Everything had to be, she had principles. Her principles were very, very firm and very honest and very upright. And that's how she was. And naive to the extent that, I mean, really, all life long she was like that. Very trustworthy, trusting, not trustworthy, trusting rather, sorry. She never saw any bad in anything. She thought it positive. But she was very eccentric. She was an eccentric person. Eccentricity was her middle name, no doubt about that, in every way.
But also, from what you're saying, not very empathetic necessarily.
Very empathetic to us. But heaven help us if somebody said something to her which she didn't think was correct or right or honest. Heaven help. But if you are straight and if you're this and if she respected you, right?
I'm jumping the gun, and
that's all right.
We're not going to use that. It's just a thought that suddenly came to my head, that if I met the person that you're describing now, I would probably think that she's slightly autistic.
No, you wouldn't. You would think she's eccentric, because she was very shy. She was a shy person. She was shy because she was very tall, and she was striking looking because of that. Not because she was such a beauty, but because, and on top of that, she walked upright like that, her head up, so it made it even taller. And she was shy because people were looking at her. She was, in those days, you didn't see women of such height. And then she wore these boots, the high officers, like they did during the war, which made her looking even, and she was very sporty. Everything was sporty. That's why she loved what my mother did for her, my mother's suit for her, because no frills, no this, no that. She was a very sporty, and so she looked even taller maybe than she was, and it was striking. So people looked, and that made her very shy. She didn't like that. She did not like that. She felt uncomfortable.
Did you ever talk to her, or did she talk to you about her family?
Yes, I knew about her mother and about her father. That's all. And I think later in life, that she had some family, I think a nephew, or she had a brother who died. I'm not sure whether he died during the war or after the war. I'm not sure now. But she had that brother, and they lived in Holland somewhere, and that's it. And nothing else. Now, I do believe that she must have had a child once. Because there was a birth certificate of a child, of a little boy at home, who would have been my age, would have been, or approximately my age. I can't remember the name. I don't know if I even saw the name there, but there was a birth certificate of a child. But we never asked the questions. And I never afterwards, after the war, there were reasons not to ask. I didn't want to revert to those days and not to make her feel embarrassed about anything. All sort of things happened during the war, so I never asked, and she never said. But about her mother, I knew, and I was writing to her mother. She was lying on a couch like here, and I was on the floor there, and she was dictating, and I was writing. And all these letters were written by me in Gothic, because this is what I learned from the books. I learned to write Gothic like it was written in the books. So she was very happy. She didn't have to do anything. She was lazy. She came home always tired because she hated the job she was doing. She was not an office person. So she disliked it. But I didn't know then whether she liked it or not. But she was, I'm so happy to be home. I'm so tired. I gave her a bath. I drew the water. I prepared the bath. Everything was done. Then she lay down. Oh, wonderful. And then we listened to the radio.
Do you remember where in Germany her parents lived? Which part of Germany?
I know where her mother was. I don't know where her father wasn't alive anymore since a long time. Her father was a professor, university professor, I believe, and a great anti-Semite. That's what she said. She always knew from her father, because my mother discussed things. She said with her, "How do you know? Have you ever seen a Jew? No." So she said, my father told me, and so So from her father, she hated the Jews on the father's side.
But do you think she really did? Do you think she really did, or it was just something that she
hated in the sense that the Jew was an Untermensch, and that sort of thing. From her father's side, he obviously, there were discussions, maybe that I don't know how, but she said that my father was anti-Semitic and so on. So later on in life, she said it not there and then, of course. Don't forget, she died in 1981. I mean, we've been together after the war. And but her mother stayed in a hotel. She lived in a hotel and died there. Because after the war, I tried to find her somewhere, wherever. So, of course, I was writing letters. I, until today, remember the addresses and everything. So, was writing the letters to her mother and to the aunts. She had two aunts, and I was writing to them. And then I had a reply from that the mother died, and so on. So she's no longer alive, and they didn't know. Nobody knew where she was. So that was that. So I had to look. I tried to look through other ways to find her somewhere, because she was evacuated back to Germany. Yes. So I tried to find her. I did find her. That is a film story. That episode is a film, which nobody would believe it's possible, but that's how it happened.
Tell me.
No, this is much later. That's much later. Much later. That is later. That's after we were, so to speak, liberated, when we were in Krakow by now, my mother and I tried to look for her somehow, to find her. But the way I found her was absolutely incredible. I tell you that, but it's completely...
Well, it is related because we're talking about Frau Witt today, so...
Yeah, I know,
obviously
but
I'll put
there's in between, there is a lot that's happening.
Okay, then let's leave it for now. Let's leave it for now.
Come
back to the end.
Get to it when we are...
So we are
the time.
At the stage when Frau Witt, through the doctor, gets your mom the arm.
And my mother goes back to the ghetto.
And you stay.
And I stay. My poor mother goes back on a Sunday night. She leaves very late. No, not that late, because she lives before that was in Poland, they were closing the main entrance to the houses at 10 o'clock, so she had to leave before 10 o'clock in the evening. So she was leaving, and had to get herself to the ghetto, get inside the ghetto, which was for me something horrendous, because I never knew whether I'd see my mother ever again. Because when she was leaving, she left dressed as a peasant woman. She wore all peasant clothes and
scarf.
Not just scarf, a huge, like a barkhanową, completely wrapped up in it, that you could hardly see her face. It was all around her, and that's how she walked through town, entire town, from one end to the other, because the ghetto was there, and we were in the German section, which was the new section was done completely the other end, in a curfew hour, when there was a curfew. She had to walk all of that, get to a point where there was a Jewish group, coming back from work, and try to get attach herself onto this group and put the armband on. And underneath, she had this arm. So and I never knew whether she got in or not. The whole week long, I had no idea. And she would come back on a Saturday evening, stay one night and one day with us, with me, and go back on Sunday. And that's how it was until the ghetto burned down and she escaped.
So that's a good few months. Through winter and springtime of 43.
From November to the end of May, beginning June. And it was absolute horror for me, and I didn't want to stay. I did not want to stay for that reason, and for the reason that I felt tremendous guilt that I am in such surroundings, and the people in the ghetto are dying on the street. I did not want to be there.
Would your mom, when she came to see you every weekend, would she tell you what was going on in the ghetto?
Of course. I wanted to know about my grandparents, about everything. And I really wanted to go back with her, or escape from there and get myself into the ghetto. And when she heard about it, Ravit, she decided that no, she didn't want me to go. She didn't want, absolutely. So she was locking me up. When she left, she would lock the door up from outside, So there was a balcony, and I could lie down on it, and see the groups of Jews going to and from work, down below, passing by. So I decided I'm going to write and try to get it down, and maybe somebody will pick it up from them, and I would write that, would you please see that such a person is alive, and when you come back, just nod, or whichever. If you nod, I know yes. If you do that, I know whatever. I didn't know who picked it up. I didn't know what.
Risky.
Very risky. Very risky. That it had to go and get to these. But it was the third floor. So I don't know, but somebody on 2 occasions managed to get to my mother. And coming the following day, there I was, and somebody in the group, that was my sign. I don't know who it was, no idea. So that, at least, I knew that, but I wanted to go. So she knew that I want to go back to the ghetto, and she was very upset about it. Didn't know what to do. And so one day she comes and she says, "You're not to worry, you'll have company." I said, "I'm not worried. What company?" I tell you one thing. I was the clever one. I was the smart one. She was completely an innocent babe in the woods. She had no idea. But I said, "Well, what have you done? What have you done? What do you mean company?" "Oh," she said, and I knew that there was still, at the time, one of the main, very well-known pharmacists in Lvov. And the manager was still the Jewish man who was the manager before the war, and he was still there. And she tells me, and I knew that she was going there to get something, whatever. She told me, I went and I went to the apotheke, this and that, so she was coming and telling. So she said, I went and I asked him if he knows somebody, because I want to take somebody, so you should have company. Yeah, she did. Yeah. How can you believe that? So he said, "No, I don't know anybody," because everybody was scared. I mean, here comes the German, didn't know what it could. Yeah. They didn't think she was crazy, but they thought it was some kind of a
trick,
something they wanted. So no, I don't know. Okay. So she went another time, like with my mother. She went another time, and she said, "Look, I'm still looking for somebody. I need somebody because I have a Jewish girl staying with me. And so I need some company for this girl." That's what she told him. And he said, "No, I don't know anybody. I'm sorry." But when she came the third time, he said, "Okay, I have my wife, and she's under there in the cellar. Would you like to take her?" She said, "Yes, I take her right away." So he brought his wife out, and she brought her home. So I should have company. And a very lovely lady, very nice lady, but can you imagine things like that? No. So now she was happy in a way that I'm not going to run away because I have company, and that she was. And within 1 week, he decided to come without even asking, without saying anything. He decided if there is such a place and if there is and his wife is there. So he came. Excuse me. Excuse me for a moment.
Don't worry. Take your time.
I won't talk now. Hello. Dzień dobry, dzień dobry. Nie mogę teraz mówić, bo mam wywiad. Nie szkodzi, nie sekundkę jedną. Może wieczorem, dobrze? To ja mam zadzwonić, dobrze? Ale kiedy? Jest pani w domu? Dobrze, dziękuję bardzo. Już. Dobrze. Proszę jeść mandarynkę wobec tego.
Naprawdę pęknę, jak jeszcze coś zjem. Po prostu zjadłam 2 kawałki.
Ale mandarynka to nie jest jedzenie.
To ja sobie wezmę potem jedną na podróż, jeśli mogę.
Można sobie, pani teraz może wziąć nawet 3, nie
ale
jedną,
teraz to
nawet 4.
Okay, so there is 3 of you in the flat now. The pharmacist, his wife, and
Teraz
you.
ten przyszedł, ona nie wiedziała, co na nią spadło. Przychodzi do domu, on jest. I ona już ma 3. No pani sobie to wyobraża. I on ma jakiegoś Ukraińca, który przynosi dla nich jedzenie raz w tygodniu. Ona